And every time we do,
Consent.
it goes live, and then it goes to the YouTube thing, and I got to exit out of it. We're probably live right now because it always goes live before it actually says we are.
There's a 7-second delay so we can mute you.
Yep, see, hang on. There it is.
Consent.
Okay. All right, guys, we are live. Coming to you from the home office here. Got the garage set up. Tony, I don't know if you know or not, but here in my garage here, I got we're remodeling our house right now, and got a contractor. He's going to build like two fake walls. So I got the back corner here, so for the winter, so it stays warm. So I can always work from home too, whenever needed, at night especially. So I can call you late and keep you up, and then you have to get up at 4 a.m. and it'll be good for you. What do you think?
I go to bed early. I'm old, and I get up early because I'm in freight.
Oh, same thing. I'm
I know.
3:45.
Every time I put a post out, it's like 4 a.m. Tony Darnell liked your post. Tony Darnell. Come on, Tony.
Is Tony really in freight then?
We got a great guest with us today. I was just talking to him just before we came on here, but it's that time of year, and typically it ramps up. But with just how freight logistics has been going, it's already been busy. Coming into this time of year, especially if you got retail accounts and things like that, and it's going to be a mess. I have a feeling. People look for that type of motivation and stuff to kind of keep that fire lit. And like I told him, everybody's got something they could complain about in their life. But you just got to keep pushing forward. And, you hear stories like this and makes you realize that, hey, there's harder struggles out there. If you can find a solution and figure it out, it's never too late. My dad always told me, don't ever come to me with a problem if you can't at least suggest a solution. So, if that's a solution for what you're dealing with in your life, what you're dealing with in logistics and a problem and an issue, or what you're dealing with just in general. So I'm going to, push it off here to Kenneth, let him introduce himself a little bit, kind of go into what all he wants to talk about here today. And then we'll just kind of get it rolling from there. It's always kind of an open forum here. I'll pull YouTube up, see if the guy, I know Nico and Nick will be in the comments. So go ahead and run with it, Kenneth.
All right. Thanks. I will say thanks for the introduction, but you put it all on me.
Yeah.
So I'm Kenneth Carter III. I am new to the brokerage, less than 2 years into my company that I built. I have 20 years in the industry as a truck driver, and I just felt like there was a time to bring something different to the table as far as driving. I have no control as a driver. I'm told what to do, told where to go, and I just wanted more. And that really stemmed from going to prison. So I did the driving for a long time. I was regional manager for a big corporation. And then I wanted to make some extra money and end up selling drugs and going to prison. And from there, I realized that I had more potential and I needed to do something about it. It took me about 3 or 4 months in to realize that. And so I started building the company. And 3 months after getting out, I started that company and it's going well.
Yeah, so that's one thing I thought was pretty cool. It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to start a company during a pandemic. It was, hey, I'm going to start a company 3 months after getting out of prison. You know what I mean? So that had to take some prep while in prison, correct? I mean, that was an idea or something you had kind of rolling already, right?
Yes, that's all I did. I used my time to read books, self-help books, read about any kind of freight industry. I had family members sending me anything on freight. And I think I had like 3 or 4 business plans before I got out because I had so much time.
Yep. Maybe that's what I need to do. I feel like I'm always behind.
I could probably tell some stories and make that happen.
Tony.
Oh.
Tony. No, I'm just kidding. No, but no, it is true. There's toxic positivity in which sometimes you convince yourself everything's okay when it's not. You probably should change some things, but there's also like silver lining. I think you can always try to pull a positive out of it, as in, hey, listen, obviously going to prison is part of a situation that you probably didn't want to do, but you made the most of it and utilized it to be a benefit in any way you could, whether that's small, big, whatever it was, to set yourself up, kind of give yourself a springboard for coming out of it, which I think is pretty cool to see. But I know you had mentioned before, Now, I kind of did a little research and just to kind of get some background on you. And you've been on quite a bit of podcasts, I guess, is what the research I did. I listened to a couple of them, and I thought it was interesting how you said something that I thought was pretty cool. You said, you the people you surround yourself with and what you're used to is kind of like what your mentality will be or what you compare yourself to. And so, I mean, I remember you talking about how when you were like at your lowest and you weren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, which, we've all been there, no matter what level, you were comparing yourself to like a homeless guy or something, or a guy, a guy was drinking every day saying, oh, well, I'm not like him at least, and I thought that was a pretty, in all honesty, I think people try to justify their actions by finding somebody or something they can compare it to that it's not as bad as or better than. And I think that's that kind of that toxic positivity, I guess, that you hear sometimes of. How hard is it to pull yourself out of that? And because, you look at sometimes, people that are in bad situations or whatever, I'm not going to say it's not their fault, but it's also just kind of part of their conditioning and what they're surrounding themselves with and what they've been surrounded with. What does it take, I think, to kind of spark that, hey, listen, that doesn't have to be me. I can really do whatever I need to do. I just have to do it.
It takes a lot of honesty and looking inside, looking really deep and identifying those weaknesses. And I think that's what we have the biggest problem in general. Just like, I'm not going to tell you what's bad about me. Hey, my name's Kenneth and I'm bad in this, but you have to really turn around and do it to yourself. And what I did was I took a piece of paper down the line in the middle. I had my strengths and I had my weaknesses. On my strengths, I filled that paper up real quick. Then when it came to the weaknesses, oh man, it took a while. It took a while because I really had to dig deep and replay things that happened in my life while I was being ignorant. And when I started looking at that and replaying the scenes and looking from somebody else's point of view, I started to realize that I wasn't as good as I told myself I was, or I wasn't as cool as I said I was. And I started digging deep in those weaknesses. And when I finally got to those weaknesses, I shedded some tears because it was really, it hurts because it's true. And from there, I just started working on one weakness a week. And I mean, I had the time, but we all have that time. All you got to do is find that number one weakness, identify them by priority, and say, this is my worst one. And that's what you tackle first. Because you get that biggest weakness out and everything else is a little easier.
Breaking it down into steps too. I think that's the key is that, I think when people are looking at like a task or looking at something, I work with my kids on this. One thing that's helped me, and I'm ADHD. I've got like kind of a little bit of OCD. And when you do, they even say like people with OCD, like they're 100% or 0%. So like if they know they can get something done, like all the way to how they need to do it, they'll do it. But if it's too much, they tend to just bury it or push it away or find a reason not to do it. And so like my son, like yesterday, he built a bunch of forts in our room. And hey, you could do that, but you got to put it all away. Well, then when we go to put it all away, I go in there and he's kind of like having a meltdown. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, just it's so much. And I'm like, and I get it. Like I've been there, right? Your brain hurts. There's just so much to do. And I'm like, break it down in steps, like break it down into steps and focus on one thing. Like right now, just focus on pillows. Like just get this is an analogy. I understand it's a little funny, but it's funny that I thought about it yesterday. I thought about this was just focus on the pillows, get the pillows done, and then walk back in, reset, and then focus on one other thing that you got to get done. And then reset, and that breaks it down. I think it makes it easier for you to tackle. And that's with anything. I think, like what you said, find your weaknesses, focus on one. You can list them all out, and then it's overwhelming. How am I going to fix all these weaknesses? And you give 10% at each one. Right, give 100% at one, knock it out, and then move forward. And I think that's key with anything in life. And you go through those situations that kind of. There's always something I think in people's lives that kind of spark that kick, that work ethic, that push. It's early for some people, and it takes time for others. Tony, we were up at Notre Dame at the game tailgating there, and you were talking to me about when you first started, and you were making like X amount a week, and then you would just go to the bar and spend it all at the bar, and you were the coolest dude in the bar, right? But you had to just keep working and grinding your ass off because you're just thinking you needed X amount of money and then just go spending it. Right. I mean, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, we all had our time when we were young and dumb and, like Kenneth, I respect you a lot because it could have just as easily been me. I've made more mistakes than you probably ever got caught for. I've probably done stuff that's worse than what you were convicted of. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that you said you listed your pros and cons and your strengths and weaknesses. And man, that self-reflection is huge because it forces you to become honest with yourself. And when that's most people's problem is they won't be honest with themselves. And when you can be honest with yourself, then you can heal. I mean, if you're still telling yourself that it's all good and I can keep doing this and it's all right and I'm not going to get caught and I'm above that, man, that's when you're lying. That's when you're failing, and you'll never grow unless you can accept the fact that you need to grow. You can accept the fact that you've got a flaw or 8 flaws or 10 flaws or whatever. And that's where you learn where you need to go. You can't go on that path until you have a starting point. Then that self-reflection is that starting point. And I respect the hell out of you for saying that and for admitting that and going forward with it. And man, that's just awesome. I do volunteer work sometimes with a local, like a halfway house. And, you know, I tell every one of those guys, and we do these mock interviews, and I tell every one of those guys, man, it could just as easily have been me on the other side of the desk and you on this side. And we just sit there and talk. And, you know, these guys have a felony strike against them. And it is hard to get a job when you have a felony. And I don't know what yours was, if it was a felony or not. That's irrelevant. I'm just saying these guys practice their pitch. And I tell them from my point of view, what advice I have as a guy who's hired like 100 people or a couple of hundred people, what would make me feel good about hiring you? You know, I'm taking a chance on you as much as you're taking a chance on me. You know, I got to look good to my superiors. Everybody has to make sure that their boss or their shareholders or whoever's involved benefits from that decision, no matter what you do. That's the whole premise of business. Everybody has to benefit from the choice. So getting in there and helping people take that next step is something that I feel like I owe that to society, because it could have been me and I probably should have been, and glad I wasn't. So man, I love having you on here. I love hearing a story where there's redemption and that self-honesty, man, because for so long I wasn't honest with myself. And that's where I failed majorly, was just the basic admission of where I needed to be.
It gets you pumped up, doesn't it? I mean, it gets you pumped up. I love, I mean, whether I'm talking to, you know, my wife, like my wife's kind of the rock of the family, man. Like but when you're like that, you kind of, you hold the bar high, and when it doesn't hit like exactly, you know, when you think of life a certain way and it's not maybe going that way and you get down or something happens, or, you know, as a family, you run into things or whatever. Like for me, that's when it's like, it's click-in time, you know, as long as we keep moving forward, like, hey, I'd rather set the bar way high and not hit it. Because like Tony said, I've been through some stuff, man. I was a knucklehead, you know, in college and coming out of college, and, you know, I was irresponsible. I was all over the place. And, you know, but what I found was there were certain people that stick by you either way. And you sometimes almost ignore them because you don't want to hear from them, because, you know, they'll probably tell you what you don't want to hear. But it's like, then when you do and you hear them say like, listen, man, like, you need help, let me know. Like, I've got your back. Like, I've been there, I've done that, you know, and it's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, people do care. You know, as much as I wanted to avoid that or avoid them, maybe that is what I wanted to hear, you know, or needed to hear, I guess, is the biggest thing. But Will, with where you're at, man, I mean, you've got a pretty big sphere, you know, you're a pretty big sphere of influence there in your company. What do you, I mean, do you deal with, or I guess what personally, you don't have to go into detail or anything, but like, do you pull from what you've dealt with or what others have maybe that you've been around to help with people from that standpoint of, you know, because you're obviously going to deal with so many people that there's got to be bound to be somebody that's going through something or needing some sort of motivation on your end.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you know this or not, but maybe we've talked about it at some point. I've worked a lot over the last few years to be more open, not just with myself, but with others about my journey, because I think there's a lot of power in building a relationship that way, because you break down the walls and are able to have really good conversations about who you are at your core. And so I actually had a trainee in a training class the other day ask, what is your motivation? Why do you do what you do? Stuff like that. And it's a question I love because I think once you figure that out, you are way more locked in. It's a whole lot easier to get up and do what you're doing every day because you know what your why is. And so I'll just share briefly. So I wear a chain every day. It's got my brother's football number on it. I play football. It's 28. I played football in college. So did my brother. And my brother passed away of cancer 4 years ago. We were pretty close. He's 5 years older than me. And so, as I'm telling the story to the training class, talking about what motivates me, I just have a particular conception of how I look at time. I think that it's the most valuable asset that will ever be given. And so I think about the fact that I would do anything to spend another 60 seconds with my brother, and I don't have that opportunity. It will never happen again. It's not an option. And so when I get up or when I'm working on certain things, it just is a reminder to me that you've got to take advantage of the opportunities that you have while you have that opportunity to do that. And I also am really close with my parents. My mom and dad were unbelievable influences in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am today had they not made certain sacrifices for me. And so in every action that I take, I want to make sure that I'm putting their sacrifices first and saying, is this going to help them feel proud of what I've done? Have I honored the sacrifices they made to help me get to where I am? And I don't have a problem sharing that with people because I think, obviously it's challenging and losing my brother was not something that was easy, but I'm in a much better place now to be able to use it as a motivating factor because what else am I here to do besides make the people that were most important in my life proud and finding ways to give back and use that as a motivating factor. So that's what it is for me. I'm a big fan of trying to be as open and transparent with people as possible, especially if you want to find a way to motivate people. I think it's more about impact and less about the rah-rah stuff, like that stuff fades, but what really matters to that person and how do you make that connection? And as a leader, it's taken me years to get to the point where you have to be that real and raw with people so that I know sometimes people think you have this superhero complex, right? Like everything's always been good. You got it. And like you're doing your thing. And I'm like, no, it's hard. It's hard every day. It's been challenging, but you have to use those things as your driving factor. But that's what it is for me, man. I've had so many good people in my life that have been there to support me. And I want to be able to give that back to others because I know what it's like to have challenges and then have somebody to look up to and say, hey man, like you can do that because that gives you everything you need, the little juice you need to kind of keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and Kenneth, I'm going to get to you here on this because I think that's key on where you're at with your business and everything. But I know as we grew, when we, Circle, when we first started, it was a core group of guys really, grinding it out. We all were competitive, had the same type of like mindset. And as we grew and we added people to the team, I remember we had added a woman, and then we added it was one of my buddies, but a guy comes in, African American guy, and you're busy, and I could see them kind of getting behind, like kind of not getting as much attention a little bit. And I had heard like he had mentioned somebody like, oh, they're it's a bunch of white dudes at the top, so, like I'm just like the type, like I called him in my office and sat him down. And I'm like, listen, I don't know if I'm even supposed to do this as a manager, but I just want to let you know right now one thing. Like, this is my background. This is what I've done. Anybody that works hard, I'm going to have your back. Like, I just want to let you know, it's be straight up transparent. I want you to know right now that whether you're a woman, African-American, different race, different gender, whatever, I don't care. Like in freight, I'm going to have your back if you're working hard. You give me everything you got. And there will be no discrimination here. And if there is discrimination, this was like the one thing I wanted to know. I want you to come to me. I don't want any questions. I want you to come to me. I'll handle it. All right. I don't want you to put your career at risk or anything like that. I'll handle it. You come to me though. I want you to know that you can walk into this office and come to me anytime you feel that you're being left behind or left out of something, or you're not given an opportunity, because that's important to me. And the guy, I don't know, he was like kind of sitting down. He like kind of like sat, like by the time we were done, man, he was like sat up. But I think you got to understand that people go into certain situations, especially when you're locked into one. You're locked into your own and everything's flying, and you're not realizing when you bring people on board that like they may not feel comfortable, they may not feel empowered, and then you wonder why they quit after a week. And I wanted to make sure that like they understood that like, hey, this isn't what I stand for. I don't ever even think about that type of thing. I'm literally just all about freight when I'm here at work. but I'm also a human. And if you guys ever need any help or need to come to me about anything, feel free to do so. And I saw a difference in him. I saw a difference in her when we first started. But then they became key influencers then as we grew, because then as more people came in that were different than me, different than everybody else, that came from a different background, that had a different style, it was like they felt it necessary to go talk to them and say, hey, this is a great group, man. Like good group of people. They'll help you out. Just do this, do that, do that. And I think it's helped kind of snowball it. I did it on a whim, just making sure that, I'm just very transparent. Sometimes it gets me in trouble every once in a while, but I think it's key. And Kenneth, I know you've got a business you're running, and I don't know how many employees you've got, but how do you find a way to, without going through and telling your story every single day, to make sure that, your people understand and feed off of what you're feeding off of?
Well, really is leading by example. I mean, I get up early, I'm working, I work late. If they need me, I'm there. Everyone who works with me, we have two people right now, and they know the story. And the reason I tell that story is because I want people to feel comfortable and understand that, listen, I've been through crap. So when you're gonna make, they go, oh, I made this mistake. I'm like, you know what my mistake was? It put me in prison for 2.5 years. You messed up on a phone call. That's nothing. So I always compare that craziness that I went through, and they're like, dang, you know what? You're right. So there's really no mistakes to me. Freight, there things happen, but I always tell them, like, you can't control what happens. We're 3PL, just do what you can, and that's it. And like I said, it's just that comparison to show them that nothing's that serious.
And that's awesome. That is awesome. I find, I lead a team, and I don't know, we got 25, 28 drivers, something like that, and some dock crew and some forklift drivers and some group leads and team leads, where we're shipping tons and tons and tons literally of product every day. And you know what, it gets so frustrating. You get behind, you get ahead, you get a good load out, but it's not the one they need. They need this one instead, and the guy's gone already. And it's so incredibly frustrating, some of the volume, and your boss is like, dude, you got to answer these emails faster and more. And I'm like, I got 50 by the time I answered the first one, literally, and I can't get to the next 48 because it took an hour to deal with that one. And the guys, sometimes they'll come to me and they'll get frustrated. And I always tell them, dude, come into my office and shut the door. You can vent your frustration in here. We're at a big company, and sometimes, the frustration wants to boil over. People want to say things. People want to throw stuff. I've got a hole in the wall that we framed. It's a dude's phone. It's shaped just like his phone. But we found a spot for him where he's thriving and his blood pressure's down and he's having a great time, and just reapplied him. We put him into a position where we focused on his strengths and what he was good at. And now he's thriving and he loves coming to work every day instead of being beat down and exhausted and worn out and mentally just fatigued. And freight is hard. It's always like that. And it's, at the end of the month as a shipper, it's crazy. Sales is calling me at home and at work and on my team's line and on my cell phone. It's insane. But having that outlet, having them have the ability to come to you, and then having that perspective of like, dude, that's just a phone call. You messed up on a phone call. No one's going to jail. We're good.
Hey, one mistake, 2.5 years.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, we're shipping awnings, and I'm like, we're not making heart valves over here. We're making shade.
Yeah, throw that awning on ice, get it in a helicopter.
We got to get our customer is very important. We got to get everything we can do to get them their stuff, but lives are not being saved. It's money that's being made. And, we have to prioritize our customer and their needs and customer satisfaction and all of those metrics that are so critical for business success. But you got to realize in the real world, if people are going to fail in doing so, then we got to fix that. We got to give them an environment where they can be frustrated and then go vent in a healthy way so that they can go back and be refreshed.
And I think that's so important because, and Kenneth, I know what you deal with. I mean, when you bring in people, like how many employees do you have?
Two.
We
run through them. Brokers are real tough.
How many did you say you have?
Just two.
Just two. Okay.
We got 15, then we go to 2. We got 10, then we go back to 2.
Were they experienced or are they new to everything?
New to everything. I was new to it. So right now I'm really just working on giving people the opportunity.
Yep. Yeah. And when they're new to it, I think things like again, getting out there and listening to things and being involved in what the industry is and really trying to make it a career. You listen to things like what Tony said. I remember one of our first podcasts over a year and a half ago, we had the freight coach, old Christopher Jolly. And he was saying, when I first started in freight, I would have never thought that Tony was a regular guy that went home and drank beer at night. And it's so true, because it's like, when you understand what they go through and you hear Tony say, end of the month, we're struggling. I got sales guys calling me, I got this going on. I got that going on. You start to realize what they need or what they want. And I think that's the key, because for a long time, I think when you get into an industry, it's very transactional and you can make money quick and you can do it, fairly easily. If the people above you have it set up that way, you tend to think about what you're going after, what your goals are and what's going on. And until you pull yourself back and realize exactly what their issues are, you talk to people in sales, find their pain points, this and that. And it's like, that doesn't always work when you just having a conversation. Like, Tony's not always going to be like, well, I'm not just going to come out and tell this guy what I'm struggling with. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's other ways to find it out. And especially when you build a relationship, that's when you get those open conversations. Or if you're listening to a podcast or you're part of something, whether it's in the community or whatever it is, and you're networking and you're talking with people, that's when they start to open up, because they've got nothing to lose. They know you've got nothing to gain. However, you do have something to gain, and that's just knowledge and understanding of what your role is and what you can do and what kind of effect you can have on the industry. And I think that's a key thing.
I got a question for you, Kenneth. This is like totally off on a tangent, but that's how my brain works. Do you find when you're looking to grow and you're looking to add people, are you looking for a guy that is right there and just needs a second chance, or are you just looking to fill the role with the best candidate that applies? Or do you ever, I don't know, business is business, and you got to do the right thing and make the right business choice. But at the same time, we're people, and you want to do the right thing. It may not just be a business decision, right? What if the right guy just needs a break? Maybe the right guy has a past. I got a guy now that, he comes to work every day, and, he's got a bracelet, man. He comes because he's on parole, and he comes to work every day. He's kind. He works his butt off. He's great. What if he just needs a break, man? The guy turned out to be a great team member, and he cares about the rest of the guys on the team and the gals and everybody that's out there, helps everybody out. He's got a good attitude and a good work ethic. What if the guy just needed a simple break?
That's what it's all about. Yeah, it's all about the breaks. People always call it the second chance. I call it the first chance, because when you go through situations, you realize that you messed up everything. And so really, it's like your first time to live. I was existing for so long, just kind of doing whatever day by day. So this is my first chance. So if someone has that opportunity or they want that opportunity, so be it. My whole thing is about filling lives with optimism. And I think people are not optimistic enough. They doubt themselves so much. Yeah, they doubt. The doubt will kill you, alone. And then not being optimistic is like, what are you doing? So I'm here to say, try it out. But we're a fairly new company, so I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I didn't know anything about brokerage. I just knew I got out of prison, I wasn't going to look for a job and get denied because of the felonies. So, to answer your question, I got 2 felonies. Mm-hmm. But I don't care what your past was. It's about what you want to do now.
Good. How has being like a 20-year truck driver veteran or whatever it was that you said you had all those years behind the wheel, has that been a challenge to get on this side of the desk as a broker, or do you find that to be immensely helpful, or both? I think
it doesn't correlate at all.
Really?
It really doesn't. No, it's so different. You're like a robot to me, as a driver. Not knocking people as drivers, but they tell you where to go, tell you what to do, and you get back and that's all you do. When I started the brokerage, my second shipment, I never did credit checks, and the lady gypped me for $3,700. So that was a learning experience. Yeah. It took me about 90 to 100 days to pay her off, because I was still working a job. And so like little things like that, like my credit, my broker credit is like, oh, well, you had this many days to pay. Like, well, if you knew the reason why, so but that's what we do. We grind, we make it happen, and we find a way. And I just found new ways to make it happen. So if someone has been through their life and it's hurt them, if they want to find a way to get out of that, then here I am.
And that's that open conversation too, that I always try, because I've always felt the same way is, listen, I'm all for taking chances in a business. I think you have to, because that's where like what Tony said, sometimes you find the best people, because it's like, how do I find somebody that's motivated? How do I find somebody that's going through a tough time maybe, or is coming out of a tough time? That's when you find some real winners. But you got to make sure you're on the same path. They're on the same path as you. That their mission within your mission is important, because this is what my mission is. What's your mission? Let's see if we can coincide here, because I'm gonna give you a chance here, right? I've got high hopes for you. Right now you're at 100% on my scale, but this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing things, and this is what we're doing here. And I'm gonna have your back on everything, but we got to be on the same page, right? And so it's like, hey, I'm gonna give you a chance. As long as you're doing this, as long as you're working hard and doing what's asked of you, you can't go wrong. You're gonna make mistakes, man. It's freight. You got to get used to that. That's really how you learn. I mean, you could try and train as best as you want. A lot of the training really is just on TMS systems, processes, things like that. But situational, you got to have a little bit of assertiveness. You got to be able to bounce things off and learn from mistakes, and just understand that it's going to happen. I've always said in the freight industry, it's tough, because until you start going through and realizing how many opportunities are really out there, because you don't see them, you don't know all that. There's so much to learn that you don't understand how much opportunity there is. It's like, you go into the freight industry, it's like a tunnel, right? There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's like you're going to that tunnel blindfolded, right? But as long as you just keep moving forward, you're going to bump into things, right? You're going to bump into things, you're going to bounce off, but you got to just keep moving forward. You're going to make a lateral move, but you got to just keep pushing forward. Then after that, and you'll get closer and closer to that light, and you'll find opportunities along the way that you bumped it that you never even knew existed. But it takes that grind. It takes a little bit of that. Like I said, it's kind of weird. You may not even know if you're coming into work every day and you're in the freight industry. If I got any advice for anybody, just understand that good things happen to people that just keep moving forward, because it's like a cross country race, man. People start dropping off right and left, right? But you just got to keep moving, because by the time that race ends, when the race starts, there's 100 people together. By the time it ends, you're seeing one cross, and then maybe 5 minutes later, another one. Like you could be out there and you could separate yourself, because people don't see the value. They don't see what's going to happen, or the value of the opportunities, and then they bail. And so that's one big thing for me, is just saying, hey, I don't care what you've done before, what your past is, what you got going, who you are, what your background is. There's opportunity here, and trying to describe that to them and let them know. And Kenneth, I think you're in a good spot, because what you're doing is saying, hey, I'm on the same path as you. I'm learning too. We could do this together. We could be on the same mission, right? The same path together. And I think that helps fire people up. You see that quite a bit.
Yes. A lot of people reach out to me because of the story. I never thought it'd be something I shared, but my sister told me one day, was like, you might as well just say it. You're doing something different now.
Yep.
And ever since I started sharing it, more business has been coming. People want to give me that chance. People want to work with us just because of that. Like, you know what? My uncle or my brother or my sister, everyone has been through someone going to prison. Mm-hmm. Or some kind of probation or parole. So,
or should have
yeah, Tony.
Well, that's the thing. Like what Tony said, you relate with people. It's like, there's a couple times I probably should have been, so I ain't gonna judge it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's how it is, though. It's everybody's been through it or been around it, and so when they reach out to me, it's like, well, I heard your story, so I already know that they have something going on. But the number one determining factor to hire someone is, do they have their own personal goals? I don't want your goal to be my goal. You got to have your own, because that's what made me not want to work for people. It's like, I never had a goal, so I'm just working for somebody else's goal. But then that burns out. I mean, you can't live for someone forever. You got to have your own goal. Will, I think you agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, if you don't have anything that you're working towards on your own, it's very tough to be able to keep moving forward. And a lot of times that's where people either get burnt out, or they find a way. It's tough for them to find a way to keep moving. So you got to be aligned with something. And I don't know, I think in transportation, if we're going to be honest, like, none of us probably thought as kids we would be broker and freight like that. Well, I didn't even know this was I didn't know this was a career option. You know what I'm saying? Like what is so, it's not the role itself that is what's motivating you. Typically, it's something outside of that. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's other aspirations that you have, but you need to have those things. And it can't just be the business.
Yeah, and I think always trying to find that, what, as a leader, maybe helping somebody find that, sit down, talk to them, say, hey, what are your goals? I'm not sure, well, and again, letting them know what yours are, what your mission is or whatever. And then saying, hey, I tell you what, well, we got this, what do you want to do? I'd like to be here. Okay. All right. Well, let's set this as a goal. I used to do that. And then we meet every month and say, all right, did we hit what goals did we hit? All right. So we hit these goals. All right. Let's add, those are done. Let's add some new ones. And then let's focus on the ones we didn't hit. But then it gave them something to work towards too. When I first started, my degree was in sports medicine, athletic training. I went down to University of Cincinnati for physical therapy. My wife now went down with me. Her dad got cancer. We had to move back. So I wasn't able to finish that degree, and he ended up passing away. So I had to get a job. I knew I could talk a lot, so I was like, I'm good at sales. So I got in sales and started killing. But like I had a territory in Northern Indiana. I was traveling all the time. Our marriage wasn't doing well, like at all. It was there. It was to that point, and I had to make a decision. And it was like, hey, how can I take the skills that I've learned here and put them into a 9-to-5 setting or something that's close to home where I could be home every night. We got a little girl on the way, and I got into freight. And I'm gonna be honest with you, guys. I took when I first started Circle, I took the job for $25,000 a year salary just to come in and make sales calls, and I was hurting. We had kids, I had a wife, I made sure their car, everything was good to go. My car was terrible. I was going through my middle console every night to find quarters to get gas to get home. Our parking lot back then sucked. And so I was always hitting potholes and needing new tires because I couldn't take care of my car. And I've always tell people, like, I don't even know why I stayed. Like, I took the job literally just to have a job and then try to find another one. But I had somebody there, his name's Derek, he's VP now, but like he just kept saying, like, dude, just trust me, man. Just trust me on this. Like, just stick with it. You know what I mean? And, just keep grinding. If you do this next month, you can go in and ask for a raise. I guarantee it. So I did it. And then I was able to go and ask for a raise, got me up to $30,000, and then I just kept doing that. I had that grind, that thing that I wanted to get to. And then once we got going, we really started growing, and I was being, successful and everything. I remember hitting that point where I was making good money and I wasn't used to that. And I remember sitting down one night and being like, why am I not like fired up or as motivated? Like why was it easier to be motivated back when I was struggling, trying to find quarters between my seats to get gas to go home? Like, I thought that sucked back then, but really that's when I was at my best. So I had to reevaluate and self-reflect, say, hey, what is it that I want to do? Like, what is it that's going to get me fired up again? And I think sometimes you need that. I think to sit back and say, hey, what is it that really gets me going? Because it wasn't the exact situation I was in back then. It was in my mindset. How did I get to that mindset? And how do I get back to that mindset? And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you need that sometimes. And, having the right leader, I think that's where all four of us come into play. Like in our roles, is that one little phrase, one little like conversation with somebody could change their whole trajectory, because they may be right at that point where they need to hear something or know something because they're trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah, definitely. The two people that work with me, sorry, Tony.
Oh, go ahead.
The two people that work with me, the first one, her name is Lakeisha, and she came in wanting to be a dispatcher. And
Lakeisha
she's still
James?
here. Huh?
Lakeisha James?
Yes.
I know her.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm just kidding. She's in the comments.
Oh, I know her. Yeah. So she wanted to be a dispatcher, and that's her motivation. And the other one is Antoine, and Antoine wants to start his own brokerage. To me, that's perfect. You guys got goals, you got plans. Let me help you get there. You don't have to stay here for 30, 40 years. I don't want to stay here for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So have your own goals and let me help you get to that point. And I think that's key.
We have a set of core values that the company operates by, and one of them is a positive mindset. And I don't know if you're a big sports fan, but the three of us are for sure. Some of us even played some back in the days.
Tony, top 5 soccer player, Elkhart, Indiana.
Mishawaka, South Bend.
And now he's
Anyway.
afraid.
Anyway, but my son's in some travel baseball, and the coach came out here and said, "Hey, what's a Hall of Fame batting average?" And I don't know anything about baseball. I mean, football and soccer. I know about that stuff. And he's like, "Dude, 300 is a killer." He's like, "That's striking out 7 times. That's getting out 7 times out of 10." And and that's considered Hall of Fame. I mean, you're going to the Hall of Fame at 300.
Wow, didn't know that.
That positive mindset that you have to go back out there failing 7 out of 10 times. I mean, if you get a 70% fail on a test at school, like, you're going to get to repeat that grade.
You get a second chance.
That's in the Hall of Fame. You know, it's
You
just
get a second chance. We'll give you a
positive
second chance.
Right. The first chance. I love that. I love that positive mindset, because it frames your structure. I mean, it just depends on the context.
But that's because the baseball players that are good know it. That's what I'm saying. The freight industry, you got to know you're going to fail.
Yes.
You just have to. But
And
every
you have to
single
be able
time
to learn from it.
playing baseball, when it really clicked for me, like my junior year, it was like, that's when I was like, okay, if I'm going to strike out, I'm going to not do what I want to do, because it's so many variables. But when I got done, I was back in the dugout, and I was evaluating what I did. I'm watching the pitcher. I'm trying to get any advantage I can. What are his moves? What is he doing before? Man, when he touches his glove and goes left glove to the hip, he's coming curveball, right? Like, I know I'm trying to find any advantage I can, because I know that it's harder than hell. Like, you just got to understand, hey, it's harder than hell to succeed. You could always be average. I mean, it's easy to get there, lay a bunt, hit the ball, swing as hard as you can, hit it here and there. But like, it goes from like swinging and hitting the ball and let the ball go wherever it goes. I think when you're young, you do that. So how do I place the ball? That's a whole different mindset. It's like, I can put the ball where I want to put it. I can do a certain thing in this situation. What's the situation? Got to run around first. Just slap the ball, get it on the ground, move him. Right. I mean, like, there's all different types of ways to understand how you could win the game by not necessarily succeeding yourself, but helping others succeed and learning from it. And I think that's the key there. That's a great analogy, Anthony Darnell. Good work. Well, what do you think? Well, you've been up and down through the struggles, and what do you think when it comes to that might? How about this? I got a great question for you. You guys at Molo have a different way of approaching things, strategies, mindset, culture, all that stuff. Now that you're paired up with another company, or maybe you're not far enough in, I guess. What are maybe because maybe you don't know yet, but what are the struggles you're seeing, or what struggles do you think you may run into? Maybe not even struggles, maybe just challenges you know you're going to run into to keep that on the same level, because now you've got more, obviously more influence, more people surrounding you or involved in what you're doing. You just made your team bigger, whatever it is. What do you expect, or what are you seeing that you're going to have to approach from a mental and mentor side of things?
I think the most important piece is maintaining the transparency of communication and the frequency with which we communicate to people around why we're doing what we're doing and the why behind it. That can be increasingly more complex the more and more people you have. And you also have to manage those one-to-one conversations, which is one of the reasons why I think we've been able to build the culture that we have, because our people are very in tune with why we do what we do and how we do it. And so to replicate that and be able to build and scale it even further, we have to keep those things top of mind. Obviously, it's a challenge, and it's going to take a team effort, everybody locked in to be able to do that. But that is something that we'll have to continue to focus on. And it's got to be the same level of effort that we've had in this first 4 years for the next subsequent years as we continue to build that culture piece. But that, I mean, if people understand why you do what you do and they get consistent messaging and they're hearing the same thing over and over, it's just repetition. They understand the values and what builds the business. Then that stuff starts to help self-regulate. You don't have to have, you've got players that are regulating the way things go because this is how we do it, right? And if it's done properly, you are able to perpetuate a great culture. So to me, I think a lot of it just has to do with making sure that we're streamlining the communication and doing it the same that we have. Obviously, as you get more and more people, it becomes more complex, but you got to still focus on that.
Yep. And that's the benefit of, when I came in, like we were smaller and you were smaller, I was able to have those conversations. Like I reported directly to our owners basically forever. And I was able to have those conversations, understand things that other people didn't. And so then as we grew, I tried to pass that along. I'd always sit in like with people and be like, hey, I actually just talked to Eric and one of our owners. This is why we're doing this. Like, this is because they're like, what's going on? This and that, and I'm like, well, we'll just hang on. From there, you've got to put yourself in their shoes. What they're seeing is this. So if you approach it from this way, you're good to go. Like, you almost have to like kind of have those conversations, let people know why you're doing what you're doing. Like what was the strategy behind, pairing up with another company? Sometimes those bigger business things and those bigger business decisions that, people don't like what they don't understand a lot of times. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's natural, I think. But if you're having those conversations, like you said, and being transparent, they're like, okay, I get it. All right. I'm on board with this, man. All right. That makes sense. I never thought of it that way. I think that's a key thing.
Yeah. You got to have the why behind everything.
And then, so that's what, where you're at, Kenneth, you're having those, people know where you want to go to, or what are your goals? Where do you want to get to? What do you want to do, here in the next, couple of years? Like, what is your, do you have a number? Do you have a employee count? Do you have an account, number that you want to get to, or what's your main goal?
Well, my first wildly important goal was 100,000 in revenue for the first year. We're at 160,000 right now, so we surpassed that. That was just a short-term goal, but I really want to get into international. I want to be able to. The company name Ameriton, it comes from America and the tonnage. So I want to be able to supply America with all the tonnage. Anything I can do, anyway. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so it took me a long time to think of that, but but I want to be able to supply America, and that means going international. And so we've gotten to drayage now, which was a great accomplishment, and we're just going to keep moving forward and basically tackle everything we can. Employee counts, we don't really have a number there. My 10-year goal is to be $1 million in revenue, and I know in freight that should be really easy if we do everything right and keep that culture.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was like, it is weird until you understand that, like, it isn't that hard to get to that. Like, I came in Circle, we were at like 40 million. A lot of that was on assets, and 5-6 years later, at 550 million. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize like how much but it takes one account. Will, this takes one account. It's because somebody was like, oh, my goal is to get to like X million like this next year. I'm thinking like, dude, it could take one account to get there. That's it, one. You know what I mean? But you just gotta. But if you're knowing what's out there and what opportunity there is, like getting into drayage, so knowing what's going on in the market, right? Where are the struggles at? Right? Drayage right now is a mess. Right? I know I can get in there and help that out. Right? I know I've got opportunity there. We're right now. This portion of the industry's humming right now. Like it'd be great to get in there, but like where is it struggling? Like where are the opportunities? Having that idea of like what you said of saying, hey, I'll try to get into anything I can. You know what I mean? And even letting those people that you get in with, sometimes I used to do this too, is just let them know where you're at and that you want to grow with them. Hey, I don't know a ton about this, but I'm going to make it happen. I'm that type of guy. I'm going to handle it for you. Like you help me a little bit. I may have to ask some questions. Sorry about that, but I'm going to follow through and get it done for you. I think that's a great approach.
Yeah. And going back to your step-by-step thing with the pillows and your son, I wanted to get into drayage. So I'm focused on one port at a time. So Savannah Port, that's all I'm working on right now. And with the Savannah Port, I've built up a carrier base of about 30 to 40 carriers. These are not companies, these are all owner operators. And so now I'm able to reach out to that base and get something moved faster than me going on dredge websites and load boards and all this craziness. So just one step at a time, like you said. And Mono has set the bar really high for me. So I'm coming for that.
Man, well, everybody's talking about Molo. Like, oh, they're so inspiring and everything. They're not that great. They're all right.
600 million? Okay.
Remember I kind of talking shit to you all the time, Will? And because how I always like how Circle came up is how Molo was coming up. I had a great conversation with Andrew Silver out in Vegas, and that's when I got to know the company and really and that's why I really liked it and everything. And I used to always give Will shit like, oh, you'll get on our shit, you know, because we had started before them. So I'm like, you'll get on our level or whatever. And then it came out like where they were at in revenue this year. And I'm like, shit. I'm like, you guys actually have more? He's like, yeah, dude. That's why I didn't say anything. I'm like, oh, man.
Man, you know what, man? I would prefer, like, you know, it's fun to be able to have that competitive nature. I think that all of us are competitive. Everybody here is competitive, and you want to have people in the industry that are like-minded and are going out there to get it, because that raises the bar for you and how you attack what you're doing. And it's not one of those things where it's like, I'm going to compare, you know, us to this company or that company. It's good to see people that you can align with in the industry that push you to be better, because then you achieve at a higher clip. And also they hold you accountable. We kind of talked about earlier, Kenneth, you were talking about this. It holds you accountable to a higher standard, right? So you see someone achieving at a particular level and you go, I can see myself doing that as well. Let's align together. There's a lot of business to be had. There's a lot of cool conversations you can have that accelerate your growth. But having those, you know, horses to go chase after puts you in the right mindset to be able to achieve it. And like I said, it's not about, you know, this is where they are and this is where I am. It's about how do I grow myself and get better. And that's something that, you know, each of us can do to help each other.
And those are conversations you have when you're comfortable too. I mean, just having those conversations too, those relationships. I remember coming back from Vegas after talking to Andrew out there. I mean, we sat down there and people watched in the casino till like way late. And we talked forever about a lot of things. And I remember coming back and being like, you know, you never know where you're at. Like we were on the brink of like making a decision on whether we wanted to do this or that. I'm like, hey, I literally, Molo's doing this. I guys talked to Andrew about this, and he said that they did this, and this is how they did it. And he was like giving me tips, you know, because like it wasn't going to affect him at all. You know, I mean, like he's in his own world. Like he was just giving me tips on how he did it. I thought that was awesome. I'm like, I didn't know people did that. And I'm like, hey guys, we could do this. This is what Molo did. Like if we do it this way, and we ended up going through with it. And it was like, cool, man. Like that's you know, it was a whole different, you know, side of things. You know, it's not, you don't have to give away secrets or anything like that, but you can have conversations about what you're doing, how you're doing it. And it may relate and pair up with what it is. And Kenneth, that's some advice I give you, man, is just as you're growing, man, people want to help other people. Like, you know, you just see like when people get going and they're having success and they see somebody grinding, they're like, hey, how can I help Kenneth out? You know, just the other week, it's been like 2 weeks in a row now. You know, I see Nico out there grinding out on LinkedIn. Guy's crazy, man. He's putting all these posts on and everything. I thought, hey, let's get this guy some more attention. You know, let's get him out. I like what he's doing. I want to help him. You know what I mean? It's like when people see people working hard and pushing through and maybe even having like a story like what you have, like people want to help you out. And sometimes it's hard to understand that. You've got a lot of advocates out there that have been through it and done it. And they've maybe got to where, you know, things are rolling on their side and they want to put some effort into helping some other people out get to there.
Competition's great.
I reached out to Nicklund and we had a 30-minute conversation and it was great. I mean, I changed my whole strategy just from a conversation.
Who was it?
Nicklund.
Competition is great, but it makes us better because everybody wants to see everybody do well, right?
Yeah.
You know, we'll all stop and look at the car accident on the highway, but we'd rather watch racing.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, people aren't, you know, there's 300,000 people watching the Indy 500, but there's only the people passing by the crash looking at that. Yeah, you can't look away from a train wreck, but we want to see people succeed. We want to see people do well. We want to cheer on the underdogs. That's a feel. I mean, Rudy, Hoosiers, all of those great Indiana-based sports movies that make us great.
Indiana-based.
It's the underdog. It's the little guy. It's the guy who came back from adversity and did better. I mean, we want. It's human nature to want to see people win.
If you're winning, because there are people that's down, they want to see you down with them.
Yep. Yeah. And that I've always said that. Listen, business is business, man. I came in with this, like, I'm going to be transparent, positive attitude or whatever. I was very, very ignorant or naive to like, there are some not good people out there. And like, there's two types of competition. The only thing I knew was like from sports was like, and I was always like captain, kind of a leader. Like I led by example. And when people wanted to compete with me, they raised their level of their game. Right. But there's people out there that want to compete with you. But in order to do that, they don't want to raise their level. They want to bring you down to theirs. So you got to understand that. And it's just a sad reality of it. And but you got to understand that. And I think you give everybody a chance and, but you got to sit back every once in a while and evaluate exactly who's on your side and who isn't. And the people that aren't, get rid of them or get away from them because you got your goals. coincide with people. And I've always said this, you know, as the teams and everything built, you know, sort of the more people we had, you know, we went through like a commission structure change, all this other things, you know, some of the people that were there from before, there was like a little group that was kind of negative. Right. And they were affecting people. They were talking to new people and doing this, that was what they had control of that group of the mindset of it. I wanted to make them the outliers. Right. So you make them the outliers. They'll get rid of themselves. Right. You make it cool not to sit and talk about this and that. You make it cool to book freight, to land an account, to follow through on this, to do this. And right. And that's on you as a leader, is basically to make that the norm, to make that the mindset and the way you fit in. The way you fit in here is positivity, rally around each other, doing this, but you got to be able to see that and recognize it. And that's just business, I think.
Hey, nobody wants an echo chamber, but we do want a cheerleading section, right? Like, I mean, we can be each other's. Kenneth,
All right.
man, it's been awesome to have you. I know Will's got to go. I got to get going too, but what a great story. People want to help you. I mean, if you're not already following Kenneth on LinkedIn, go check him out. Go check him out, follow him, give him some business, and then give him a shot. I mean, the guy wants to work for your business. He'll earn it.
Thank you, Tony.
Regan, come here. Yeah. So thanks for coming on, man. Honestly, we appreciate it. So got little man here. This is the fort builder here, right? Down, pillows first, blankets.
Pillows first.
Down your goals. Get Kenneth, Tony, Will. So thanks for coming on, man. Hey, everybody go follow Kenneth on LinkedIn. You got any advice or anything you can help him out with? The guy's grinding, trying to get to where he wants to be. He's got a good group. We met Lakeisha today. There's Antoine. There he is. Antoine Battle. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is he related to Arnez Battle? He used to play for Notre Dame, Tony. You remember?
I don't know sports. I don't watch sports. You guys killing me with this.
He's grinding. So, hey, man, we appreciate you coming on, sharing with everybody. It's you know, you never know who's watching that needed this. Never know. So we really appreciate it, and we're rooting for you. And anything you need, let me know. I know Will, Tony, same thing. They'll be there for you, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
All
Will.
right. Thanks, guys.
Y'all take care.
Bye, guys.